Good afternoon, race fans. Welcome here as we get ready for knockout qualifying for our 29th race of the season. Yeah, I was trying to figure in my head where we're at. Yeah, race number 29 of the season, and we are here getting ready for knockout qualifying for chase race number 3, our first elimination race here at the home of the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And the first car off track, very interesting that one of the cars first off track is one of the drivers that is currently situated in the danger zone. Leon Alvarez right now has fallen all the way down to 16th in the chase points, which puts him right now as one of the 4 drivers in danger of not moving on to the next round of the chase for the championship. He's joined by Zachary Fitzwater, James Richardson, and Brandon Gonzales. Now, Brandon Gonzales was actually in the danger zone last week, heading into Taylor Swift Superdome as well. He picked up 2 spots in the standings, bypassing both Fitzwater and Richardson, but he only moved up as far as 13th in the point standings. You want to be up inside the top 12 in the points when the checkered flag waves here at the end of this week's race at Indianapolis, or else you've run 3 races and you're already out of the championship hunt. Leon Alvarez is now on the clock in the Dodge UAW Dodge Charger out of Bulldog Motorsports. One of their drivers, Grayson Acevedo, will be moving on to the next round of the chase regardless of what happens this week at Indianapolis due to his win 2 weeks ago at Chicagoland. And Leon Alvarez ended up making a pit stop. I think it was like an unscheduled pit stop last week at Taylor Swift Superdome, which really hurt him, had him trapped a lap down, and that's why he ended up dropping as far as he did in the point standings after last week's race. First lap laid down here this week will be a 200.147. Holy cow, these drivers are going to be hitting 200 mile per hour lap times here today. Jake Baskinger up to 201, and Austin Mongold 202. Same for Carson Scott. See if we can find that 59 of Baskinger. There he is. Was the highest finishing chaser last week at Taylor Swift Superdome. Actually, had headed into that race in the danger zone and jumped his way up to, I want to say, 2nd in the point standings now, but I might be wrong. And Matthew Daleo just hit 203 miles per hour. There he is. That's why he's in a draft here with Kyle Mathews and Benjamin Miles. You're going to want to be careful, though, around each other. They don't want to wreck each other. You want to be able to keep that draft going. This is going to be a really fast lap time, I think, for the 30 car. See if he beats his own lap time of 203. And no, he didn't. As a matter of fact, Carson Scott beat his lap time, and now O'Neal Baldwin top of the leaderboard. There's Baldwin. Been a while since he's made a race. And right now he is top of the leaderboard. Carson Scott in 2nd, Matthew Daleo 3rd. By the way, if you're wondering, yes, I'm eating my breakfast. Then Stephanie Gardner, Shaun Gallighan, Austin Mongold, Baskinger, Ciculli, John Gilbert, Brandon Gonzales. One of the danger zone drivers now has jumped up to 9th, and Austin Mongold top of the leaderboard, but let's see if he's going to get bested by Baldwin. No, Baldwin was about a full mile per hour slower that time. So right now, it's that car that's pacing the field, and as soon as I jump to him, Stephanie Gardner jumps up to the top of the leaderboard. That always seems to be the thing. Whoa! 204 miles per hour by the Sega Chevrolet of Trent Dunham. That's the fastest speed so far, 204.295. So Trent Dunham, I think that all but ices it for him to move on to the next round of qualifying, no doubt about that. And his teammate Shaun Gallighan not too far behind there, 6th fastest. So a couple of the Sega Motorsports cars pulling out the speed, and Gallighan just jumped up to 3rd now with a 203 .680. Let's see if Trent can improve. I don't think he's going to be able to improve on this lap. He did! 204.713. He's the only driver to hit 204 miles per hour here so far. And he just beat his own lap time. I think he's been getting some help there from the draft of Jessica Shelton. The Tampa Bay Rays Chevrolet just up ahead. And I think the session is going to be coming to a close in 10 seconds. Looks like it's going to be Dunham, Mongold, Gallighan, Gardner, Volvin, Stultz, Carson Scott. Oh, Kyle Mathews just jumped up to 4th. And the session is complete. So from Carson Scott on down, Daniel Voyles, Matthew Daleo, Brandon Gonzales, and Jake Baskinger will get the final transfer spot into the next round of qualifying, it looks like. Just missing out, Joshua Ciculli, Anthony McCrury, Ryan Madden. So Trent Dunham paces the field here with over a 204 mile per hour lap time. And as stated, he, Mongold, Gallighan, Mathews, Stephanie Gardner, O'Neal Baldwin, Zachary Stultz, Carson Scott, Daniel Voyles, Matthew Daleo, Jake Baskinger, and Brandon Gonzales. They will all move on to the next round, round number 2 of qualifying. For go or go homers that move into the next round, 5 of them in total: Mongold, Gardner, Baldwin, Stultz, and Daleo. So if 2 or more drivers transfer into the next round of qualifying from our second heat, then that means the drivers at this point that would officially miss the race would include Keith Batson, John Gilbert, James Qualls, Garrett Sidner, also Seth Cole, Elijah Gordon, and Aaron Henderson. Noticing, too, a number of chasers going to be starting close to the rear of the field there. You got Jessica Shelton was 24th fastest, Leon Alvarez 26th, Dillon Poteet 27th, Benjamin Miles 30th, and Levi McIntyre in 31st. And as we saw back at Taylor Swift Superdome, being at the back of the pack isn't necessarily a good thing. But Trent Dunham, the fastest here in this heat of the first round of qualifying. Let's head now for our second heat, see what other 12 drivers will be joining these first 12 in round number 2. Coverage continues in just a moment here from Indianapolis. So in the first heat of the first round of qualifying, we saw the first half, if you will, of the drivers in the danger zone. Brandon Gonzales will be moving on to the next round of qualifying. Leon Alvarez will not. In this one, we will see the other 2 drivers who are currently situated in the danger zone: James Richardson in the 11 and Zachary Fitzwater in the 76. Looking at Holden Gluba, who'll be the first car on track here for the second heat. Holden Gluba, definitely worthy of TV time. Last week at Taylor Swift Superdome, qualified on the pole position, dominated the race, led all but 7 laps, and ended up picking up his second career Hersheys Cup Series win, first of the season. So Holden Gluba trying to ride that momentum and qualify his way into this week's race at Indianapolis, and the Aaron's Dream Machine is now on the clock. And while we're waiting for him to come around to complete the first lap time, I'm going to quickly take a little bit more of my breakfast here. I want to make a point too that, as mentioned, Holden Gluba led all but 7 laps. Those other 7 laps were led by one driver, and that was chaser Jake Baskinger. And Baskinger was the only chaser to lead laps in that event, so he got that extra bonus point as well, which I think is what helped him jump up through the point standings. 199.248 for Holden Gluba. And if Trent Dunham setting the precedent means anything, that lap time will very easily be beaten before this is over. And there you go, right there. Marie Monobe just ran a 203 mile per hour lap time. And I think that was only her first timed lap. A little bit of help there from Johnny Gardner helped propel her to the top of the leaderboard. And this is a beautiful situation right here. Not only using the draft off the 27, but now going to be able to draft off the 7 car of Nathan Hudson as well. A little contact right there. nothing wrong with a little side drafting, but not when you're rubbing doors. And she does not beat her lap time. As a result, that scrubbed off a little too much speed. She's the only driver, though, so far to hit 203 miles per hour, almost 204. That was a 203.929 that she ran for her first lap, and that was, what, roughly 8/100ths off a 204 mile per hour lap time. Everybody else is hitting 201s. James McLeod, James Richardson, Emmanuel Hartnett. There's a 203 mile per hour lap time. Dougie Shears in the 21 car. Oh boy, this is hairy back here with Johnny Gardner, Nathan Hudson, Cole Baker. Have to see if any of these guys, with racing as hard as they are, if any of them can jump up here into the top 10 in speeds. Let's see if the 7, 27, or 18 jump up at all. Well, wait a minute. No, none of them did. Hudson's 20th fastest, Baker 16th, and Gardner is 19th fastest. John Cittadino makes it Fire Ice Racing 1-2 at the top of the leaderboard as he jumps up to second, and as soon as I say that, holy cow, 205 miles per hour for Dougie Shears. And Joshua Michaels just hit 204. 205.030 for the 21 of Dougie Shears. That is an exceptional lap time. And I thought Trent Dunham's lap in the first heat was impressive. My goodness. A couple more drivers have hit the 203s. Tripontakio Vernio and Kyle Keith, as well as Dallas McIntosh. They are right now in 5th through 7th. And Keith just jumped up to 204 miles per hour. 204.022. And that's good enough for 3rd place right now. Zach Rogers, John Arndt, John Andrews, they're up there in the high 202s. Right now, Nathan Hudson, Tim Walch are in the 2 transfer spots, and as soon as I say that, Walch jumps up to 9th. Hudson now put in the bubble spot, and now he jumps up ahead of John Andrews. Move Andrews to the bubble spot. Oh, someone just jumped up there. Andrews is out. Hudson back on the bubble spot, and the person who jumped up in was Rocco Twyman, up to 8th. So now Nathan Hudson. Uh-oh, someone beat Dougie Shears' lap time. Who was it? It was Kyle Keith. 205.119 for the 42 car. And I think the session is now over, and I believe Nathan Hudson's going to get the final transfer spot into the next round of qualifying, just behind John Arndt. And the top 10, Kyle Keith, Dougie Shears, both with 205 mile per hour lap times. Tripontakio Vernio, Joshua Michaels, Marie Monobe, John Cittadino, Zach Rogers, Rocco Twyman, Dallas McIntosh, and Tim Walch, along with John Arndt and Nathan Hudson. We'll be moving on to the next round. Session is complete. That is it. And those are the 12 drivers, as mentioned, that will move on to the next round of qualifying. As far as go or go home drivers are concerned, as I'm counting right now in my head, I'm seeing 7 go or go home drivers moving on to the next round, and we had 5 moving into the next round from our first heat, which means 12 go or go home drivers will be battling for 7 available spots in the starting lineup when we head to round 2 of qualifying here. But how about Keith and Shears? 205 miles per hour for both of those drivers. Interesting too, we've got 2 drivers here that are outside of the top 30 in the point standings that have wins that are moving on to the next round. Kyle Keith, our winner from Pocono. Tripontakio Vernio, our winner from M&M Super Speedway. Anyway, let's throw you down through the remainder of the starting lineup here, and with 12 drivers moving into the next round of qualifying for go or go homers, that means that officially Johnny Gardner, Joe Rockingham, James McLeod, Daniel Olson, Jason Haywood, Marty Johnson, Pichu London, last week's winner Holden Gluba, Noah Kars, and Davey Johnson will not be racing in the main event. And as I look at the drivers as far as chase competitors are concerned, of course, Grayson Acevedo, 23rd fastest, doesn't have to worry about where he finishes this week due to the fact of his win 2 weeks ago at Chicagoland. But 21st, William Brock, 22nd, James Richardson, one of our danger zone drivers, and Chris Dodd in 27th. So a lot of chasers going to be starting near the rear of the field, it looks like, in this one at Indianapolis. So we'll see what happens in the race, but we still got to set the front portion, if you will, of the field with our second round of qualifying. So don't go away. We'll find out who of the 24 drivers that move on to round 2 will be racing for the pole here this week at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be right back in just a moment. So as we get ready here for round 2 of qualifying, 24 drivers and 12 drivers, go or go home machines that are trying to get 7 spots in this week's starting lineup. Looks like the first car off track is going to be the Michael Norman Motorsports entry of Nathan Hudson. So as we watch him go around the track, you know, I've for the chase races, started with Chicagoland, I've tried to use knockout qualifying to be able to, you know, kind of get a feel of what kind of a race we can expect to have. Chicagoland was obviously a race of attrition, very wreck-filled, kind of a survival race, if you will. But the knockout qualifying session was relatively calm. Yes, we had drivers hitting the wall and everything, but we didn't really have wrecks in the knockout qualifying session. Taylor Swift Superdome, the only incident that we really had in that entire knockout qualifying session was in round 3 when Anthony McCrury and Joshua Michaels got together coming off of pit road. That was the only thing that we had there, and yet we ended up having some wrecks at Taylor Swift Superdome. So, unfortunately, we're not able to really use knockout qualifying sessions as an opportunity to be able to see what kind of racing is going to be applied when the green flag waves for the main event. Now, we saw earlier in the second heat, Marie Monobe rubbing doors with another driver. I don't exactly remember who it was. That says to me more than likely we're going to see drivers leaning on each other, but then again, the knockout qualifying sessions have not correlated with the races, so therefore we don't really know what we're going to be seeing. Is this going to be a wreck-filled race? Is it going to be a race filled with strategy? It's kind of hard to tell because there's a lot of inconsistency between what we see in knockout qualifying and what we see in the race. And keep in mind too, the mentality is obviously different too, as Nathan Hudson lays down a 200.893 lap time. We'll keep on him for just a moment. But the mentality is different too. In knockout qualifying, you're basically trying to keep your car as clean as you can so that way you can turn the fastest lap you can to be able to make it into the second round and then consequently into the third round and have a shot at winning the pole position. When you're in the race, you're more than likely going to be taking more risks than you would. So, you know, the mentality is entirely different too, and that could be a big reason why there's a difference in the racing style, as couple of teammates top of the leaderboard, Kyle Keith and Trent Dunham, and now Daniel Voyles top of the leaderboard with a 201.989. There's the Mercedes-Benz. Oh, and he's going to get a nice draft lap here, I think, too. He's right behind this group of Joshua Michaels, Matthew Daleo, and chaser Jake Baskinger. I would watch the top of the leaderboard again for maybe a possible change for the speed of the 26. I think he's going to have himself one really fast lap time as here he comes out of 4. Let's see if it does anything to affect it. 202 miles per hour for both Keith and Dunham. Can Voyles best them? Oh, you bet he can. 204.774. And we've still got a minute and a half to go, and I think that's all but iced a spot into the final round for Daniel Voyles. Now he's going to catch up to this group, and that's going to slow his time down. But boy, he laid down a lightning fast lap time there using the slipstream of this group. Kyle Keith and Trent Dunham there. Their teammate Shaun Gallighan was up there in speed. I think he was like 4th fastest in round 1. There he is with John Arndt, Tripontakio Vernio, and Dallas McIntosh. Right now he's 13th fastest, just outside of moving into the next round. Trying to get all 3 of the Sega Motorsports cars that made it to round 2 into the final round of qualifying, but he's steadily falling now down to 16th in speed. As we'll see if somebody can lay down a lap time. Maybe John Arndt, 20th fastest last time. Let's see if he can jump up here using the slipstream off of Gallighan and up to 7th. Everybody, though, is chasing Daniel Voyles, and here's Trent and Kyle Keith. both hitting 203 miles per hour, but not yet close enough. And Shaun Gallighan did jump up to 4th fastest. And 14th for Matthew Daleo. Another 204 mile per hour lap time for Daniel Voyles, but it was a 10th slower than his fastest lap. And Joshua Michaels right now in 11th. Look at the 12th position, and right now it's being held by Tim Walch in the 5 car, who is right up here, I believe. There he is. And he just jumped up to 5th. 203.009. So now Walch puts himself in a good spot. And that puts this guy, if I can find him, there he is. Jake Baskinger now in the 12th position. With 10 seconds to go, can chaser Jake Baskinger move into the next round of qualifying, or will someone knock him out? He didn't beat his own lap time, but neither did anybody else, really. Oh, he just dropped out. Someone moved in. I don't know who it is, and that just moved John Arndt down to the bubble spot. But I think the session might be complete. Let's see if they score John Arndt here at the line. They do not. And I think he's going to get the final transfer spot. I don't know who jumped up into the top 10. It could have been maybe one of the Fire Ice guys. Zachary Stultz or John Cittadino. But Jake Baskinger will not move on to the next round of qualifying. John Arndt will get the final transfer spot.
Drivers.
And Daniel Voyles with that 204.774. Nobody, not even himself, was able to beat that lap time in the remainder of the session. And how about Sega Motorsports? 2, 3, and 4. Keith Dunham and Gallighan. You got Michael Norman Motorsports, Tim Walsh in 5th, and Nathan Hudson 10th. They'll both move on to the next round. AS Racing's teammates, Carson Scott 6th, John Arndt 12th. They'll move on to the next round. And then more teammates with Zachary Stultz and John Cittadino, 7th and 8th. They'll move on to the next round of qualifying. Also with the 16 of Dallas McIntosh out of Roush Fenway Racing, and the 95 of Austin Mongold out of Srigley Motorsports. So for the 7 drivers that will make the race, this is how they look. Kyle Keith was the fastest, so he'll be in the main event, as will Zachary Stultz, as will John Cittadino, as will Austin Mongold. That leaves 3 more spots for drivers that are outside of the top 12, and those 3 spots are going to go to 15th fastest Tripontakio Vernio, 16th fastest Marie Monobe, and 18th fastest Matthew Daleo. The 5 drivers that will not make the race that moved into the final round, or not the final, but the second round of qualifying will be Dougie Shears, O'Neill Balvin, Zach Rogers, Rocco Twyman, and Stephanie Gardner. Brandon Gonzales, way down there, 23rd on the charts. Kyle Mathews in 17th, and Jake Baskinger as well. The only championship competitor that's moving on to the next round of qualifying is that 38 of Carson Scott, so he's going to have some good track position over the rest of his fellow Chase competitors, depending on where he can qualify his way here for this race. So we have our 12 drivers that move on to the next round, the final round of qualifying. Let's see which one of them is going to start on the pole position here this week at Indianapolis. Radio, getting ready for our final round of qualifying here. 12 drivers vying for the pole position. We've got a couple of former pole sitters in this group, including the 83 of John Cittadino, and if anybody else had a pole, I forgot. Carson Scott coming off pit road behind Nathan Hudson. We'll jump to the 7 car first. He was the first one out in round 2 of qualifying as well, so apparently they like getting out first. And right now we have a 25% chance of a Sega Motorsports car sitting on the pole position. Kyle Keith, Trent Dunham, and Shaun Gallighan, all 3 making their way here into this final round of qualifying. We have a 1 in 6 chance of a Michael Norman Motorsports car on the pole, a 1 in 6 chance of an AS Racing machine on the pole, and a 1 in 6 chance of a Fire Ice Racing machine starting on the pole position. The 3 odd men out, if you will. Daniel Voyles in the Mitsubishi Lancer, well done me, in the Mercedes-Benz, there we go. Austin Mongold in the 95 out of Ciculli Motorsports, and Dallas McIntosh in the 16 out of Roush Fenway Racing. Those are the lone wolves, if you will, here in our final round of qualifying. Don't know why I want to call it Mercedes or Mitsubishi. They're entirely different from each other. Well, Nathan Hudson ran a 200 sub lap time for the first time in round 2. Let's see what he lays down here. Slower here in this session. First lap of 199.486, but Carson Scott answers with a 201.889. Almost a 202 mile per hour lap time. See Trent Dunham coming off pit road. 199.296 for Kyle Keith. Dallas McIntosh 198.186. And with only 12 drivers on track, the opportunity for a draft lap is a lot slimmer now. We had about 32, 33 drivers in the first 2 heats of the first round. We had 24 drivers in the second round. Only 12 drivers here in this round. And this is a very big racetrack, so unless you're bunched up with somebody, the opportunity of a draft lap is slim to none. 203.174 for Carson Scott. Now, it doesn't look like it, but he might be actually just close enough to be able to get the slipstream off the back of Nathan Hudson. That's what it's allowing him to get these lap times. You can see Nathan Hudson's quite a ways ahead, but still, apparently just a little whiff of draft, I would think, is allowing Carson Scott to lay down these lap times. And remember, Carson Scott theoretically had a pole position this season at Mid-Ohio, but he and Chris Dodd ended up tying, went on to a 4th round, and Chris Dodd beat Carson Scott for the pole position. So Carson Scott kind of looking for a little bit of redemption here to actually start on the inside of row 1 for once this season. And that time he did not improve his lap. He was about a 10th slower. Trent Dunham right now 2nd fastest. Shaun Gallighan 3rd. Those Sega Motorsports cars, I'm telling you what, they figured out Indianapolis, it seems. Trent and Shaun were really fast in the first session, the first heat, and their teammate Kyle Keith was lightning fast in the second heat, and then they ended up going 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the second round of qualifying. John Cittadino, 202, and I believe Carson Scott just beat his own lap time, now at 203.487, and Shaun Gallighan up to 2nd. And Galligan's in a draft right now, too, with John Arndt and Zachary Stultz. If he's got enough time, he might be able to get around and may have something to say about the pole. No, somebody just took the pole. That was John Cittadino, 203.722 for the 83 car. He's a former pole sitter this season, too, so this would be his 2nd pole of the season for that 83 team. But I'm curious about this 48 car. Is he going to have enough time to get around and be able to get the pole? Oh, Carson Scott just took it back, 203.855. Let's watch the 48 in this draft. Will he be able to take the pole position away at the line? 202.753, not good enough. And I don't think Cittadino's going to be able to get around again in time. Oh, maybe he will. Does he beat his own lap time? No, he does not. 202.744, about a full mile per hour slower. And I think that's going to be all she wrote. I think that's going to give the pole position over to Carson Scott in the 38 car. Well, that was quite a battle there at the end between Cittadino, Gallighan, and Carson Scott. And Scott's not even going to get that lap counted. Didn't get it in, about a couple seconds short, but still, his 203.855 going to be good enough to get Carson Scott the pole position over John Cittadino and Shaun Gallighan. I'm really shocked that we hit 203 miles per hour, quite honestly, with only 12 drivers on track. Session's complete, that is it. And this is the way they're going to line up for the first 6 rows
to your car.
of the Brickyard 400. Carson Scott will be on the pole position. Look for his 2nd win of the year. His only win this season came At the road course of Infineon, John Cittadino will line up alongside him in second. Shaun Gallighan and Zachary Stultz will make up row number 2. Trent Dunham, John Arndt in row 3. Austin Mongold, Daniel Voyles, row 4. Kyle Keith and Nathan Hudson will be in row 5. And Dallas McIntosh, Tim Walch will make up row number 6. So Carson Scott, I believe this is his first pole of the season. I might be wrong. I can look real quickly, actually. And yes, indeed, it was his first pole of the season. So he'll start on the inside of the front row for the first time this year. And we'll have to see if starting on the pole position with no other chase competitors in sight within the next 6 rows, if Carson Scott might be able to put himself in a good position to move on to the next round of the chase for the championship. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's knockout session from Indianapolis. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the crew today. Now look down in the description if you want to see the official starting lineup for this race, and we will see you guys for our 3rd chase race, our first elimination race of the season here, which will be coming up in the next couple of days. You've been watching a production of NNSCRA, Offline Race as Best. So long from Indianapolis.